my name is Helen Jean, and I am the Jackie Dorns Curator of Fashion Design at Phoenix Art Museum. I'm standing inside the Kelly Ellman Fashion Design Gallery, looking at the exhibition, India Fashion's Muse. I'm joined today by Leena Raval, textile historian and designer. Leena studied at the world-renowned National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad, India. Leena worked for Calico Textiles, where she designed both apparel and textiles, but also did extensive research on their collection of Indian textiles held in the Calico Museum of Textiles. We are so excited to have Leena join us today to give us insight into the history of the techniques and traditions behind these incredible textiles.
Congratulations, Helen, for curating and designing this beautiful exhibition, India Fashion's Muse. Actually, when we talked about it the first time and you mentioned the title, I just loved it. And you've carried the theme throughout the exhibition very, very well. The draping of the sari has influenced great designers of the fashion world. It's a beautiful exhibition and very informative. Everyone can relate with it and highly enjoyable. I really loved it. Congratulations, Helen. And now I'm very excited today to share my knowledge and experience I've acquired over the period of years. So let's begin our tour. Across the Indian subcontinent, there are numerous different styles, and each influenced by the climate, crops, minerals, architecture, and religion, creating looks unique to each region. For example, the minerals that region produces would give certain colors. Areas where the environment is lush and verdant, the textiles are often more subtle in color. For example, in the south, where the environment is very green and grassy, they do not need a lot of color. So their colors are very subtle, off-white or very often white. And textiles that come from desert regions are often the most vibrant of all. For example, the desert of Rajasthan, central western state of India, where it is all desert and the color is very, the desert environment is very dry and not so exciting. So that's where they compensate for lack of excitement with beautiful, vibrant colors and also with the use of mirrors. Fulkari means, full means flower and akari means shape. So it is a geometric representation of flowers. And it is an integral part of Punjabi weddings. Actually, a birth of a girl child is considered very auspicious. And the mother and grandmothers, they would get together and they would start embroidering at the birth of the girl child. And they would invite women and sing very emotional songs while embroidering it. They used darn stitch or satin stitch and embroidered entirely from the reverse side on a coarse piece of cotton. They use colored, unspun silken threads like floss.
Now, Leena, you mentioned that this is a textile that is begun at the birth of the child. Mm-hmm. Is this when would the textile be gifted to the child?
Traditionally, it was collected and it would be given at the girl's wedding time as a part of dowry.
That is a tradition that we find in other cultures. The yes. Creation of a textile upon the birth of the child that then follows this person through their life as part of the wedding ceremony, as part of the protection over the house. And in some cultures, textiles like that can then travel with the person into the grave and as part of burial ceremony. I think what you were also saying about the stitching in, singing while they're stitching, we find that in other cultures as well. That action of stitching emotion, stitching love, stitching protection into Correct. Our textiles. Yes. That's a very human experience that we do
yes.
share.
Yes, it is literally, sewn with love. So every stitch has that love in it.
That's beautiful.
This also is a folk embroidery. and it belongs to one of the nomadic tribes. It is from Kutch, which is part of Gujarat. Again, it is the western state, and as you can see, it is full of colors. Their signature style, you can see it more in the blouse, is called Shisha Bharat, which is use of the mirror. And these mirrors are sewn over with the buttonhole stitch. And they believe that the reflective quality of mirrors wards off evil spirits, but also it attracts attention and it looks more dramatic. Um, and usually women do it. It is they make their own garment, and they also pass on the embroidery skill to their daughters. So it becomes like a generational art.
I'm looking at a particular angle of the textile here because it shows the raised texture of each of these colored sections. Can you give a quick description of why that would be?
Yes, it is a tie-dye technique. So what they do is that they put a piece of rice and tie it from underneath. And then they go on to the next dot and the next dot. And that's how they tie very tightly each grain of rice.
And what you can see is the remaining lines left over from the threads as they
Yes,
were resisting the dye.
yes.
Just beautiful. Thank you for sharing this piece with the exhibition. Leena, in the exhibition, we have a pitala, and it is an incredibly beautiful and obviously a very complex textile. Can you explain the technique behind achieving this look?
Yes. Uh, it's a fabric that never fades. It's, my most favorite of the saris. And, you know, it's the colors are so beautiful and bright. It's even after 100 years, the fabric may rip, but the colors would not fade. And this is also, part of Western region, the color belt. And that's why you see bright colors and um, and the technique that they use is called double ikat. So this Patola sari is from Patan. That's one town, and there are only two families that weave this kind of sari because it takes about a year or even more than a year to make one sari, and it's quite expensive. It's a very complicated sari. You can see the design, how mathematically it is achieved. The way it is done is that the warp and weft, meaning the threads, before the fabric is woven, they are tied and dyed separately. So tied, dyed, untied, tied again, and that's how they get different colors. But while it is being woven, each thread has to match with its design. This patola, only there are two families that weave patolas, and they closely guard their secret, the technique of weaving, how to calculate the designs. And they don't even teach to their daughters because someday the daughters would get married into a different family, which might then learn the secret. So they teach the daughters only limited skills like dyeing and all that, but not the design part, not the mathematical part of the design.
So, Leena, these two saris are incredibly similar in their coloration and the use of the red in the border and the pallu. Could you give us some background in the similarities and differences between these two styles?
Yes, they both are from the eastern part of India. They use silk and cotton because that part of the country was very rich with natural fibers. So the one on the right is from West Bengal. It is Garad silk, and Garad, the other pronunciation is Gorod, and it means white. So this one is, pure undyed white silk, natural silk, and only the red, and it's a plain border, relatively a plain border, and then paisley buttas, those small motifs all over the sari. So this is a traditional Bengali sari, and the combination of red and white, yes, that's the butta of paisley, and the combination of red and white is very uh, auspicious. And so this one is used for different ceremonies in the family or going to the temple. And the style of draping the sari is very typical of Bengali.
There's a paper-like quality to this
Yes,
textile. Can you explain why that would be?
yes, it is. It is the kind of silk uh, that gives that kind of sheen, and it's unornamentally, meaning it has no finish given. So it is very natural, and it's just the kind of silk. It's one of the wild variety of silk, but it gives out that sheen.
Next to our sari from Calcutta, we have a version from Assam. Can you tell us a little bit about the differences that we can see an obvious difference in the color? Can you explain why that would be?
Yes, it is from Assam, and Assam is also part of Eastern India region. And the color of the sari is it is muga. I think it is tussar, or it looks like tussar sari.
Yes,
And
it does.
yes, so it is, the silk worm. Generally, if you want to take out fine silk, you have to um, start collecting silk while the worm is still in the cocoon. But this particular silk, they do not kill the worm, but after the worm comes out of the cocoon, they collect the cocoon, which is already cut. So the fiber of that cocoon is a short fiber. So it is a little bit rough, and the color is more like a ripe color, and that's why you see that little darker color. And also, um, the silk, the production of silk, it varies depending upon on what kind of tree the worm was, or the moth was cultivated. So if it is mulberry, that is supposed to be the very fine silk you get from the moths that are cultivated on mulberry tree. And these are cultivated on different kinds of trees. Sari is an unstitched, one continuous piece of fabric between 5 yards and 9 yards, and the width is about 45 to 48 inches wide. And though it looks like yardage or one piece, one continuous piece, it is highly structured. And the whole piece is like one well composed design. A typical sari has three components. One is the pallav, that is the end piece, which is most visible, and therefore it is most elaborately decorated. Now, the remaining area is called body, and it is lighter in fabric as well as in design. The border and the pallav, the border and the end piece is visually also heavier than the body. The weight in the border and pallav also helps in the way the sari is draped. There are about 80 ways to wear a sari. So this is one of them, but this is the most popular and common style, and it is called Navy style. So you will see that this Navy style has all the components of the sari that I described. It has a border.
Here on the side.
Yes, it has a pallav in the back.
And we can see that pleated and hanging. So that would be this section right here.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the rest of the part is the body of the sari that drapes around the body. and mainly the pleats are in front, and the remaining part drapes around the body. In this case, it goes under the right arm and over the left shoulder. But in other styles, it will be different. See the way it is draped, it signifies grace of a woman by, adequately displaying the curves at the right places.
Yes, it is. It's extremely feminine. And considering that is anywhere between 6 and 9 yards of fabric, the
Yes.
placement of the pleats and the way that it is wrapped is so critical in order to create that very specific look.
So this particular one, the yellow sari that you can see, it is called kacha style, which is like a divided skirt, or it works as if it's works and functions like trousers. And this style is worn by women who work in fields or by warrior women. But also this sari, when this particular one, if you see the end piece, the pallav is longer. So it means that this is not, this sari is not worn in the fields or not by a woman who works in the field, but by a woman from a royal family or a higher class family.
About what age does a young woman begin to wear the sari?
Now it is different, but in olden times, the girls would wear not a sari, but just the blouse and long skirt first when she's young. And when she grows up at an adult age, she would wear a sari. But there also is a gradation that first she would wear half sari, and when she is married, that's when she would wear a full sari.
Are there particular styles of wearing the sari that she might wear at particular milestones? For instance, when she is considered a woman, when she is engaged, when she becomes married, when she's had her children. Are there ways that women drape saris that communicate those moments in their lives?
Not the way they wear it, but the kind of saris they would wear. So when at the time of engagement, she would wear a heavy sari, with more gold or more intricate sari. But at the time of the wedding is the most elaborate sari. It's full of gold and full of jewelry. And usually the color is either white or red. Red throughout the country is considered auspicious, and white reflects purity in general. And a sari, in many parts of the country, uh, in earlier years, did not need a blouse. The way it would cover, the shoulders and the front was enough. But then slowly, as the society became more sophisticated, different kinds of blouses came into being. And one of them is called choli. Regardless of the style of wearing a sari, and here you see many different contemporary styles of wearing a sari, but regardless of the style, the midriff is not covered. And the reason is that the navel or the belly button is considered to be the source of life and creativity. So therefore, it should never be covered, and hence the midriff is always bare, is left bare. The original name for the blouse is choli, and that term is used for a female bodice. It's a very short blouse, but it has an interesting history. Um, about 2000 BC and beyond, both men and women both wore only dhoti, and that was an elaborate way to wrap a long piece of fabric to cover only the lower body. But then later on, women started to cover their breasts with a small but very decorative piece of fabric, and that was tied in the back. And still, there was no stitching. Then, somewhere along, women's dhotis developed into a sari. The designer has carried the concept of a sari and translated that into a Western version of a garment. Meaning, in a sari, when we have the pallav, that is most prominent and, very elaborately done. So that one is used in this garment, in front. The sleeve has been used just the way, a sleeve, the sleeve of the blouse would be.
Yes, the designer did. They mirrored the shape of the choli.
The body of the sari, which is the design is all over, that has been used as a body of the dress. And but unlike the sari, the border is not used at the bottom. The designer removed the border, but instead used the border very cleverly as a belt. This is a beautiful sari. It was an experiment, that this sari is made with paper, and it was produced by Air India. It was the very first international airline after India became independent. So this is one of those promotional items from that time, and it came with very clear instructions on how to wear, how to drape that sari, um, and it also came with the matching blouse of that era's style.
Leena, this has been such an incredible opportunity to receive this insight from you. Thank you so much for your time and sharing with us your expertise in the background of these textiles. These are stories and histories that I wouldn't have been able to uncover without your help. And I am so grateful for your time and for your knowledge.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and all the best.